This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cavins.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the app today. Use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Also, check this out. For Game 1 tonight, we're recording this on Thursday afternoon. Game 1 of the NBA Finals, Prize Picks has a Jason Tatum square. If Jason Tatum scores 1 point, that's more than a half point, folks. Square wins. Users must add it as part of their lineup before the timer ends. So if you've got the time listening or watching this podcast, you can check that out and take advantage of the Tatum Square. Score 1 point and you win. Finally, you can also take out the guesswork of buying NBA or NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Before we get into the Patriots, Greg, do you have a Celtics-Maverics prediction for me?
Well, I'm mostly sort of interested in tapping your quickie view of the series because you watch way more NBA than I do. I mean, the extent of my NBA viewing is some occasional fourth quarters of the Celtics. I will say last round I watched a little bit more. Was very impressed by the Pacers and their offense and how they move the ball. I just thought that they didn't, with Halliburton not playing or not at 100%, they just didn't have a quote-unquote finisher to sort of seal the deal. And, you know, if it was whether he was healthy or they had somebody else, you know, could that series have gone a little bit differently? Maybe, but we'll never know. Certainly I'm intrigued by, we know the Mavs have Kyrie and Luka, who can finish, both of them. But in my mind, I mean, I just think the Celtics are just better, deeper, more options, more ways to beat you. You know, I was super impressed with Holiday in the last round. I just think, you know, and we'll see with Porzingis what he's able to do, how long he's going to be able to go, and that's significant in terms of rim protection and also what he brings on the outside. But, you know, to me, if you were asking me, what's the difference in my mind, in my very layman's mind, and how much I view the Celtics, you know, what's the difference between this team and some previous versions of this team? To me, it's Holiday. I mean, the upgrade from Marcus Smart to Holiday, you know, in terms of his, we know both can defend, but what Holiday can do, how he slips seamlessly into what the Celtics want to do offensively. Where with Smart, it just seemed like he tried to shoehorn himself in, which led to all sorts of, you know, issues. I'm not saying they were huge issues, but they make a difference when, you know, you're trying to win a championship. So to me, I think it's going to be a really good series. I think it's going to be competitive. I think there's going to be a lot of drama with the whole Kyrie and Luka's full of drama himself. I am, for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to an NBA Finals. I've always been more of a Stanley Cup Finals guy, which I am also looking forward to on the other side starting Saturday. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's the Celtics' time. I thought it's been their time the whole year, and we'll see what happens.
I don't want to repeat a lot of what you said because I think you're on the money several different ways. I got the Celtics winning the series. I do think their top-end talent, 1 through 6, is just better than Dallas. Mm-hmm. And they've got the experience factor now in their back pocket. They've been there before. Of course, Kyrie's been there before. Derrick Jones Jr. has been there before. I would say Luka, you know, he hasn't been to an NBA Finals, but he played so many big games at a championship level across seas. I don't think he's going to be shook by the NBA Finals stage. But everybody else, you know, P.J. Washington, Derek Lively, who's a rookie, Gafford, you know, those guys, it'll be interesting to see how they respond to such a big stage. I just think the Celtics' versatility on both ends of the floor is where I separate these teams, aside from the top 6, because as you said, Greg, the Celtics can beat the Mavericks multiple ways. I don't think that's the case with Dallas. Like, Dallas is going to beat the Celtics by playing Dallas's game, which is slow, methodical, Luka, Kyrie, ball dominant. And, you know, both those guys, they take tough shots, and they make a lot of the tough shots to their credit. But if the Celtics can make it just a little bit tougher on each guy offensively and then attack them defensively, I think they'll be in a good spot. Inevitably, it might sound ridiculous or, easy to say or simple. Shooting. The Celtics, when you look at it, I went through this during my podcast today to preview the finals and my thoughts and my prediction on it. 4 of the major guys for the Celtics have shot well below what they shot in the regular season from 3. Tatum's at 29%. He was almost at 38%. Holiday is well below. Sam Hauser he couldn't throw it in the ocean against Indiana. So, you've got 4 guys. Al Horford's the other one. Holiday, Horford, Tatum, and Hauser. If those guys get back to their level, then I think it's going to be really difficult for Dallas and could end sooner than people think. But they got to make some shots. And Tatum, he's got a chance to redeem himself, because no matter what he's done since the 22 finals or before the 22 finals, there's so many people that just keep bringing that series up. And, it's a referendum on him. This is his chance. Go out there against Luka, go out there against the Mavericks, have a great series, and shut everybody up. So I think it's going to be an interesting series. And the Porzingis injury, if he can't give them 20 minutes a night, I don't think it's outrageous to think that this could go 7. And I don't think it's outrageous to think the Mavericks could actually win the series if Porzingis is unable to give them at least, 80% for 20 minutes. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But I think it'll be a very interesting NBA Finals. All right, let's get to the football. Let's get to the Patriots. Mandatory minicamp, Greg, next week. Just wanted to ask you, how important do you view mandatory minicamp when you look at the entire process of the camp season?
Yeah, it's a good question, Nick. If you would have asked me, say, 10 years ago, I might have had a different answer to this. I don't think it's overly important at all. I really don't. Not anymore. The way things have changed, the way that training camp is handled, the sort of length of, you have the 3 preseason games, but then you have a long layoff from, the final roster cutdowns to the beginning of the season. And plus, it's just so different in terms of these guys, they do so much away from the complex now on their own with their own trainers and their own people and things like that. It's very rare in these days that you see somebody, at least certainly a veteran, because this is when we're going to see a lot of the veterans come back. We've seen the younger guys. They're more prone to stick around. But, all these guys, I can't remember the last time, I thought a guy came back in really bad shape or something like that. I'm sure there's a guy or two a year, but nobody really all that significant. And so really this is about mandatory minicamp, and we'll see what the Patriots end up doing. Right now they're scheduled for 3 practices next week. That's not always how it goes down. When Belichick was here, they often canceled the last one for a quote unquote team building exercise. We'll have to see what Gerard Mayo decides, given his want to sort of respect the players, play into being understanding, being sympathetic to the players. I think the chances are probably pretty high that one of the practices gets canceled for something along those lines, the team building type stuff. But I think that, really this is about these guys, the team sort of checking in. I will say, now that you bring it up, Nick, I will say that it's important from an offensive perspective, but they've all been there. It's the defensive guys like Judon and Uche and Devon Godchow who have been spotty, but these guys have been in the system forever. So the offensive guys have been there learning, all of them. Yeah. Hunter Henry's been there. The defense hasn't. So really, this is about checking in. It's sort of just, hey, welcome back. We're all getting on the same page. I think it's important for Mayo to strike the right tone in front of the group and sort of set the stage for training camp. But really, nothing substantial is going to happen until we get to training camp and really when the pads get put on.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Mayo and the coaching staff. Will we learn anything about those guys next week?
That we haven't learned already, or
Yeah.
that we haven't? No, I don't think so. No. We'll see. I mean, maybe they get into some competitive situations, 2-minute, that sort of thing. That's something we haven't seen yet. They probably, they're going through a list on stuff where they're right now during OTAs and minicamp. They're just like, they're touching on things to get a look at things and also set the tone for training camp. We haven't gotten to sort of game situations, 2-minute drill, 4-minute offense, that kind of stuff. So maybe we do see that, and maybe that's a little bit more interesting. But no, I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna learn anything about this group. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. Seriously, I did it before. I was like, do. I did some on the golf recently. That was fun, watching along. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week, from lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays, which increases your chances of getting a win, to getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Friday. This week on PrizePicks, I'm really into the hockey, and the NBA is kind of a snooze. Go Celtics. Can't wait to watch you guys against Kyrie. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the hockey board, selecting Gustav Forsling over 1.5 shots on goal. Sam Bennett, hated in Boston, over 4 hits. Alexander Barkov, over 0.5 assists. That's easy. That's like taking money from a baby. And Chris Kreider, over 2.5 shots on goal. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first match deposit up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, let's talk about a couple things that we're looking forward to. 3 things that we're most interested to see at minicamp. Greg, you can start with one.
So Matthew Judon's #1 on my list because we haven't seen him. I mean, I know he's been in the area. He did a football camp, a couple of football camps last weekend. Same with Josh Uche. I think he's doing one soon, or might have just done one. I'm #1 interested to see if he shows up. Now, usually it's a foregone conclusion that these guys show up because you do get fined. It's mandatory, but I don't know about you, Nick, but I'm seeing an uptick on guys who aren't going to mandatory minicamp. Of course, these are like the big money guys like CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
There's some other people like that who are really like, they're going to get paid. They're going to get paid a lot of money, so they don't really care. It's pocket money for them. I would expect Matthew Judon to be there. I think he told Karen Gregan that he was going to be there because he doesn't want to get fined. He doesn't want to give money away. Yeah. So I expect him to be there, but what kind of shape is he in? How's his vibe? He's always had a really good vibe. Even last year when he was going through the contract stuff, he was always, Judon. Judon is Judon. And so I don't expect to see any changes, but I just want to see him out there. I want to see how the front changes with him there, with Uche there. We've seen like a lot of Keon White and Anthony Jennings and this other guy that I can't even pronounce his name. Starts with an X.
O'Shane Zimenez.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. He's been on the edge. Like, I'm just interested. Does the standing up stuff that we've seen from Keon White and Dietrich Wise, does that continue? Like, it's just, I like to see when guys come back, I like to see the trickle down effect. And so, getting Matthew Judon, if he's out there, I'm assuming he's healthy and ready to go, should give us some indication where the front is going.
Yeah, I cheated with Zimenez because he went to ODU when I was down in Virginia Beach. So I know all about O'Shane Zimenez. All right, so
there you go.
I also want to weigh in on the Judon stuff twofold. Number one, how does Mayo handle it if he's not there? How does Mayo handle it if Judon decides? As you said, Judon's Judon. He usually doesn't go overboard with his comments. But, he was on Felger and Maz back during the Super Bowl time, and he pretty much let everybody know that he wants a long-term deal. So will he try to put a little bit of pressure on Elliott Wolf and Mayo if/when he shows up? Interesting to see how they handle that dynamic. And the defensive front, I went through this on a podcast for my Patreon members last night. It's interesting. Judon, we know he's on one side, and we would imagine that Anthony Jennings is likely going to be early down on the opposite side. But then what else do you have there? Joshua Uche, sub-pass rusher. Is he going to look like Uche from 22 or 23? Keon White, is he an edge? Can he play out there? Do they want to move him inside? Is he a tweener? How's he kind of look amongst the people? And will they rely on somebody like Tavai to play a little bit, as they did in recent history? So I just like to see the mix up front, how they're going to configure that. All right, your second thing that you're most interested in.
The offensive tackles. After what we've seen the past couple of weeks now, last time we were out there, they didn't have Okorafor and Michael Wenu. That led to, we talked about trickle-down effects. It was like a deluge of crappy offensive line play with those guys not there. So I want to see if they're back in the mix. Again, how does that affect other guys? Does Caden Wallace go back to left tackle? That was something you and I talked about a lot last week, how alarm bells sort of went off that he was over at right tackle.
Yeah.
After, all this stuff, playing right tackle at Penn State, then the Patriots are trying to make him a left tackle. If you're doing that, and why even waste a practice putting him at right tackle? So, how does that stuff all work? But I want to watch Okorafor a little bit more to get a little bit more of a gauge on, what kind of player. I got to tell you, my initial impression of him in the first couple OTAs was positive. He looks the part. He moves decent amount, enough to play the left tackle position. And like we said before, if Michael Winu's a great right tackle, you can get away with an average left tackle because you can help that guy. As long as you don't have to help both tackles. So, that they don't have a quote-unquote left tackle right now is not overly alarming to me. You certainly worry about depth, but let's see the starters back out there, how it looks. I'm hoping that it looks better. It can't look much worse than it did this week.
I'm looking forward to the outside cornerback 2 position. A lot of people have been talking about Alex Austin. He's looked pretty good. Isaiah Bolden has been in the mix. And I think this is something that's very interesting. I kicked around the idea of maybe going out there and signing Stephon Gilmore at the beginning of the offseason. Seems to me that Elliott Wolf, Mayo, and Covington, they want to see these young guys at outside corner and see if any of them can actually wrestle the spot away from Jonathan Jones. And if they do, that's great. It would pretty much be what you wanted from Jack Jones, right? They were hoping that Jack Jones would be that young outside corner opposite of Gonzalez. The off-the-field stuff, the personality, we know didn't work out with Jack. But, if you get Alex Austin or Bolden to show up and pop for you, now you can have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to your secondary, when it comes to the slot, when it even comes to free safety. So I want to look at Austin and Bolden outside corner 2. Can one of those guys win that job? And I think that would go a long way in helping that secondary be even better than what it could be. All right, Greg, your third thing.
As always, the quarterback position, specifically Drake Maye. Does the pecking order change again after what we saw last week with Maye's ascension 2? We talked about it. When you start giving an third overall pick something, it's hard to take it back because then all of a sudden everybody overreacts the other way. Oh my God, he got demoted. Oh, he sucks. He's a bust. Like now on Felger and Maz. So, where is Drake Maye? What are they asking him to do? Does he make, I want to see progress in 11 on 11. I know he can do 7 on 7. I know the offense can do 7 on 7. I want to see progress with 11 on 11, and maybe I'm a little bit worried though about the offense with all the defenders coming back. They weren't exactly going against the A team last week when they struggled, so the A team's back in town.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say Maye. I got to say the quarterbacks. Brissett versus Maye. Does Maye creep up on Brissett in any kind of tangible way? Does the progression continue? It looks like Maye has done a good job of taking those baby steps and progressing throughout the early stages of what we've seen and what we've heard. We'll see if he takes that next step next week in mandatory minicamp, because in a perfect world, you would have Maye at least competing with Brissett by training camp, like legitimately competing with him, even if it's unlikely for him to win the job. That would be the perfect scenario for the Patriots. So Brissett versus Maye, is Maye inching up on him, or is Brissett giving him the Heisman and keeping that distance between QB1 and QB2? All right, let's jump to the mailbag. Jay Chaburka writes to you, Greg. Damian Harris had a terrific interview with Robert Mays. He backed up your reporting that team leaders knew immediately that Patricia and Judge were a disaster. Offensive players felt smarter than the coaches, and that Belichick ignored team leaders' concerns because of his ego. All right, well, it's a two-part question. We'll deal with the first part first because, it makes sense. Has there been any hint of worry from the locker room about incompetence or ego with the current coaching staff, Greg?
So my quick answer is no, none that I've heard. And, I wouldn't really expect it. I mean, I think on the defensive side, we all know it's basically the same brain trust. A few more people, Dante Hightower's in the mix, but, a lot of people have, DeMarcus Covington has widespread support among the players and the people in that building. The offensive staff is, might not have been your number one pick in terms of offensive coordinators, but these guys are very professional. They're well respected. They're experienced. They know what they're doing. They know how to install things, and they're going to be fine. As far as I haven't heard anything about the players, but I do think that internally in the building, the jury is still out on Jerod Mayo as far as, does he have the goods to deliver in this position? Now, it's still early, and when I was hearing a lot of things, not much was going on, so I didn't really, pay much attention to it. And I'll check in after, once we get to the summer, if people aren't on vacation yet, to see how they think the spring went and all that. But, so overall right now, I would say no. Certainly nothing on the lines of Patricia and Judge. I mean, I think I went back, and you could search on Twitter for this when I was on NBC Sports Boston. I think it was something like the middle of May when I went on NBC Sports Boston and sounded the alarms about, like, people were greatly alarmed in the building with what was going on with the offense. And so there's been nothing close to that. No, certainly not.
Like 2-3 weeks after the draft. Oh my God, what have we done? It's a bleep show. Second part of the question from Choburka. The Packers and Browns both invest a lot in running backs. Do you get the sense that the Patriots are going to follow their lead? And which route would you go with Ramondre?
So, man, I get more running back questions now for whatever reason. I mean, Nick, do you think, well, the Browns, look, I mean, they have Nick Chubb and then they paid Nick Chubb. I mean, is that investing a lot in the running back position? I don't know. And I don't think Nick Chubb's contract was, all that outrageous. He's a great player. The Packers, both their running backs, I mean, Aaron Jones and Dillon, who's I think gone now.
No, Jones is gone.
Jones is gone. That's right.
Josh Jacobs is in.
Josh Jacobs is in. But, for a while, I mean, they were just going with their rookie backs, the guys that they drafted.
Yeah.
And then when things changed and, Jones decided to leave, they went for Josh Jacobs. But again, I think they had followed their path, which I think that's what the Patriots are going to do. It's going to be from within. And if they get to the point, and you look at the Packers and what they've done this offseason, I mean, not just Josh Jacobs, but Xavier McKinney at safety, one of their few weaknesses. They were able to go young. They have the cheapest wide receiver room in the league because they're all their own draft picks. And so that allows them to, once the roster gets to a certain point, I think we would all agree that the Packers are now contenders. Now, because they've done such a good job of drafting and developing, now they can go and splurge on something. So I just don't think that the Patriots are even remotely close to where the Packers are. And until that time, I don't think that the Patriots are going to invest in a position like running back. I think they will look at who they have. The Fenwick kid, who was an undrafted free agent. I know they really like him. You have not heard much about him during this OTAs because he's been dealing with a tight hamstring throughout, and the Patriots are managing him. And I could tell you, Nick, if you were wondering like how important these things are, I mean, the Patriots have basically said like, don't rush on the account of OTAs and minicamp and stuff like that. Like they know what he can do. They want to see him in training camp and all that stuff. So I don't anticipate the Patriots investing in the running back position. As far as Stevenson goes, I would expect him to get some sort of extension at some point. But again, there's two sides to that. Like, the team has to be realistic on what do we need to pay a running back when we can go out and draft somebody or get somebody off the street that can do at least fill the role. Or, in Stevenson, I'm sure because he's been a workhorse back for this team, wants to get paid. Do those two things align? We'll see. The Celtics are in the NBA Finals, and I can tell you, Nick is very excited. Celtics will have home court, so possibly 4 games at TD Garden. How awesome would it be to go to a game and experience that atmosphere and get to hate on Kyrie? Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. I love that. I have to see the view from my seat before I purchase any tickets. It's right there in the app. And their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. I was just looking at the app for Game 1 and saw a ton of discounts being offered. Like, seriously, it says like, $49 off, $100 off. Of course, the price tags are expensive. Not outrageous if you're a hoophead and planning on going to the NBA Finals. Like I said, love getting a panoramic view from the seat in the app before I buy. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Purchase the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest price. Guaranteed.
Let's get to another mailbag question. This one's roughly a 15-parter from Blue Jay 6. Let's start with the first part of the 15. Was it a mistake to draft a wide receiver before a left tackle?
Yes. Yeah, I think we've been saying that for a couple of years. I mean, they need, let's just put it this way. They needed to get a left tackle type in one of the first 3 rounds. I don't know how you do it, but I mean, if you really like Polk and you take Polk at the top of the second round, then you better expend some resources, maybe the draft pick that you picked up at one point, I mean, when they traded down or something like that, then go up and get somebody. But, so I'm saying it didn't have to be the Polk pick, but they needed to do something more that they did.
What was really interesting about the draft when you go back to it is they were kind of stuck in a really difficult spot when you think about it, because they were, at the top of the second round, but the run of tackles was, pretty bananas through the first 20 picks or so. And then you had Jordan Morgan go 25th, and you had Tyler Guyton go 29th to Dallas. You didn't have really many deals at all. You had, I think, 3 trades post the 17th pick in the first round, and 2 of those trades were made by Buffalo, and Buffalo was not interested, reportedly, in dealing with you in any capacity unless you knocked their socks off, and I don't think the Patriots felt comfortable knocking anybody's socks off because they had so many needs. And then when you look at it, I mean, Guyton was drafted 29th, and you didn't have another tackle taken until 55th with Patrick Paul. So, I mean, the rest of the NFL agreed with the Patriots that at the top of the second round to about the middle of the second round, offensive tackle wasn't it. Like that's not where you wanted to draft those guys. You wanted to draft them later in the second round. And really, that's, I think, many people's second guess, right? We've gone through it. We don't have to relitigate this, but you're drafting Caden Wallace at 68. And meanwhile, in the late second round, you had Patrick Paul go 55th. You had Blake Fisher go 59th. You had Rosengarten 62nd, then Sua Mata'ia 63rd as the Chiefs moved up, and I think that especially was a hair across the tuk of Patriots fans that the Chiefs moved up to draft the guy that we'd all been talking about going to the Patriots, and Suamataia. So I would say that, the Patriots, if they drafted somebody at 37 or 34 at tackle, we'd probably look back and say, whoa, major reach. Nobody else went until 55 or 60. So they were kind of in that tough middle. And let's also not forget that they try to trade up to draft Leggett, reportedly. So in their minds, I have to take from that. So if you put all the pieces together, Greg, the first bigger move they made was a Okorafor, right? So they go out there and they quickly sign a Okorafor. Wolf has steadfast told us that Okorafor is going to be left tackle. They think he can play the left side. When they try to make a trade back into the first round, it wasn't for a tackle, it was for a receiver. So I think that should tell us, and they're also trying to transition Caden Wallace from the right to the left side, and they know that's going to take some time. I just think they believe Okorafor can do the job. And if he can't, it's not great. So,
right. And
that's pretty much what it comes down to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think the Patriots had it right. The big question, and we talked about this before, is did they get caught a little bit with their pants down on the run of wide receivers at the end of the first round? And let me also point out that, Mike Lombardi's been on record that saying that he's been told that the Patriots were horny for Xavier Worthy. That's who they were.
All right.
Going up for. He has said that, I think, last week on his on McAfee or something like that. And I think he also said it on his own podcast. But I also wanted to point out and also tackle that run that you talked about. And, in my redraft, which we went over before, the thing that I did to get ahead of it. So I was fine, and I made the Polk pick. I like Polk. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with what they did. I'm fine with trading down. I would have used the pick and the trade down that for Polk, and what I would have done is I would have gone for your boy Suma Matia. I would have traded with San Francisco instead of KC. I would have trumped the KC offer, and I would have traded up there. That would have been my answer. Not the second round pick in Jalen Polk, but do more in the third round when that run on tackle started with Paul.
Which inevitably leads to the question which I had when we talked about it is it really comes down to, do you want Caden Wallace and Javon Baker, or do you want Suamataia? That was really the decision they had to make, because if they wanted to trade that pick, that fourth round pick that they got from trading from 34 to 37 and then drafting Polk, that pick was 110. You're looking at probably trading 110 and 68 or whatever it was to move up to get Suamataia. And I would imagine that the Patriots, their estimation, they said the guy that we're going to get at 110 and Caden Wallace trumps what we're going to get, from Suamataia. And again, we won't know until they play, but that seems like what their train of thought was. As far as left tackle, Greg, anybody that's out there, maybe free agency, trade, Blue Jay 6 wants to know that might help them Band-Aid the situation if they need the Band-Aid?
I mean, maybe. I think Donovan Smith's still out there, Charles Leno. It's possible, but I think, like we talked about before, I think they'll get through mandatory minicamp. They'll reevaluate. If they think it's a dumpster fire, then they'll do something. You also have to keep in mind that a lot of these veteran guys don't like to sign. They don't like to go through OTAs. So all this, second guessing about why haven't they done anything. A lot of those guys don't want to go through OTAs. They don't really want to go through training camp. So they usually come in like midway through training camp. And so I think the Patriots are content to see how it goes. I think they think Okorafor's a good, solid player. I think they think that Caden Wallace has a chance to develop. And they have some other options internally. I think they will exhaust those options for a while, at least until the middle of training camp, before you see them do anything at tackle.
Just a couple more things, but before we get to them, this episode brought to you by Prize Picks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download that app today. Use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. You can also check out Bedard and Company at BSJ, $50 for the year. All the great coverage that they provide. They're pumping out Patriots content, and of course, they're especially pumping out Celtics content right now with John Corrales as we get ready for the finals tonight. circle back to the left tackle conversation, I also think, Greg, that part of this is, did the Patriots feel like Suamataia would be ready to start in 2024? And so maybe they just thought, well, if we're going to draft Suamataia to be the starting left tackle in 2025, then why not just draft Caden Wallace and try to transition him from the right to the left side throughout the year, because we might think that Caden Wallace would be more steady than Suamataia by 2025. Like, it could have been a situation where they just felt, we got Okorafor for this year. We're going to pretty much, I don't want to say kick the can down the road to 25, because that means you don't believe in Okorafor. But really, the young guy, the young tackle, would play more of a role in 2025 than 2024. So maybe we don't give up an extra pick and we pick a wide receiver and we pick Wallace, and then we can get Wallace to a suitable point by next season. That also could have been part of the math. Blue Jay 6.
It could have been, but let me also point out that that Suamataia is competing for a starting job with the Kansas City Chiefs. So
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's just the Patriots' evaluation. They might think that Okorafor is better than Suamataia right now, and they want to roll with Okorafor, and then we'll figure it out in 2025, because if Okorafor is as good as we think he might be at the left tackle spot, then we can always sign him to an extension with the ton of cap space that we have, or we can move Wallace to the left side, or we can go back into the draft and draft our young tackle in the first round versus trying to get something out of the late second round. It's all about evaluation. The Chiefs feel like Suamataia has a legitimate chance to be a starter this year. The Patriots think that Caden Wallace can move to the left side and Okorafor can hold his ass at left tackle. We'll all find out. That's why they play the games. We'll find out if the Patriots' evaluations are correct. Blue Jay 6, the third part of his 50-part question. Parcells took a losing franchise with a horrible roster. That's in parentheses. I didn't say that. To the playoffs in his second year. Belichick, parentheses, better roster, won a Super Bowl in his second year. Is it unfair to compare then to now, Greg? Should we say Parcells from terrible team, horrible roster, playoff second year, Belichick, better roster, Super Bowl second year? Should we be comparing those two situations to what Mayo might be able to do?
I think so. I mean, we've talked about it throughout, that this is, sort of the Packers' plan. Now, it's different, and a lot of those things are different. I mean, Parcells had Bledsoe, correct, and Belichick had Brady, and Ron Wolf and Mike Holmgren. Sorry, I'm just having some sort of issue. Freaking pollen. Mike Holmgren had Brett Favre, but we didn't really know what Brett Favre was coming from Atlanta. And, Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy had Brett Favre as well. And so, I just look at it, I know a lot of people are down on this team, and we've seen like the ESPN like power rating. The Patriots are favored to be the number one, to have the number one pick. I'm sorry, I just don't see it that way. I think there's way too much talent on this team. Now, offensively, are they challenged? Yeah, but there's ways to scheme around that and be productive. And, number one, just cut down on the turnovers. And then defense should be fine, which we talked about. And so, there were 4 wins last year. I'm sorry, they were a better team than that. The kicker and the turnovers had a lot to do with that, or else they're like a 7-win team. I expect this team to be, 6, 7, 8 wins somewhere in there. And is it going to take time? Is there a lot of unknown? And does it not look great on paper? Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
All right. He's Greg. I'm Nick. We're going to make sure that Greg can actually survive this bout he's having right now with the pollen and all sorts of stuff. Make sure he can live through this moment in time. Everybody have a great weekend. NBA Finals starting tonight. Hopefully, the beginning of the next championship team here in the New England area. We'll see how it plays out. But have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself. Until next week, it's the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cowell.